Welcome to another episode of Due Diligence, a real estate podcast, and we are successfully live once again.
Indeed.
From our North Atlanta studios, and I'm here with my distinguished, coronavirus-educated, and prepared colleague, Lee Taylor, real estate expert Lee Taylor.
It starts with a lifelong learning commitment, Jason. You want to learn when new things happen. You want to learn about them.
You're talking about being just learning-based on a day-to-day basis.
Yes. Lifelong learning commitment.
Well, welcome back to all of you that are seeing us live, that are new to the podcast. To those of you around Atlanta and maybe somewhere around the world by chance, you've been listening to us on Apple or Spotify the last year, and we're real estate experts, Jason Wieloch and again Lee Taylor. We are with the Wieloch Group at Compass, and we're here for another exciting quarantined week of our podcast, and we're
Indeed.
Safely distanced.
Yeah, we are.
And I'm going to give you some screen time, Lee. There you go.
Hey guys.
Forgot.
Hey, screen time.
I'm getting used to switching.
It's been a pleasure to be on YouTube now 2 weeks in a row. I have to admit it. It's I think going to catch on,
Well,
just like coronavirus.
I am not afraid to say that we're live with a glass of whiskey in hand.
Cheers, Jason.
Cheers.
Ching ching.
We're safely
We're supposed to.
6 feet away, hopefully.
Let's
Rounding up.
move on.
All right, so we're here for another exciting show this week. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff that's happening around the world that relates to the only story that's coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be focused on how it's affecting housing. We've maybe not been as housing focused at moments the last few weeks. Real estate focused. We've touched on it. I think we're going to get a little more into the meat and bones of it today, Lee. We have been talking about mortgages, but there's some real talk coming down.
You call it a credit crunch because it's a credit crunch.
It's a credit crunch. It's real talk today about the mortgage market and what's happening and how it's going to affect millions of people.
Some crunches are pleasant. This is not a pleasant crunch.
What kind of crunch do you consider
Lucky
pleasant?
the crunch that just on that outer layer of a Lucky Charm marshmallow? That's a great crunch.
Well, I don't think coronavirus makes me think of that kind of crunch. So
no, that wasn't necessarily what made me think of it either. I'm just saying it's a great crunch.
And we're going to talk about millennials, those entitled millennials. We just can't stop talking about them, and you know why we can? Because I'm one of them.
Well, indeed, but you've got some provocative information about some. They actually have surveyed some, and they want to see a crisis happen so they can take advantage of it.
Well, that's kind of the unusual attitude, is that some millennials actually are cheering for a housing crisis, and we're going to talk about why, and it really goes back to deep-rooted daddy issues as far as I'm concerned.
I think you're probably right. Wow, that's funny, Jason. Keep moving.
And we're going to top that off with support for local businesses. I actually have a supplement to the podcast later tonight.
Coming later,
yeah.
They're going to be with a very interesting, distinguished gentleman of fitness.
Yeah, it's Wale Weeks. He's with Cyb Fit Lab here in Buckhead, North Atlanta neighborhood. He, in my opinion, is one of the best personal trainers in Atlanta, and he's got a great business that deserves support during these times. And you know what? He's one of those entrepreneurs that's really adapting to the times that we're in.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot of virtual stuff going. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then finally, we're going to talk about...
Well, we talk about mortgages. We're going to talk about what's going to come out of this.
Yes. You know? Forbes is going to kind of lead the way here with our other topic, which is about what will the housing market look like after the coronavirus pandemic ends.
Right.
I guess the next 5 years, what does it hold for us, right?
Right.
So anyway, Lee, what's going on in your business last week? What are you seeing that you can tell our listeners about real estate?
I told you that, and this is the second week you've heard about it, is the In-Town Atlanta Index is something I just started to track. And it's an index that I made, and it's mine. You could call it the Lee Taylor Index if you wanted to.
Okay.
So this is the Lee Taylor In-Town Atlanta Index. This is the end of the last week. Just looking at what happened last week, I think it's very interesting statistics. So catch this. 570 actives, 264 under contract, 112 sold, and then an expired amount of 124. The biggest distinction is that the expired's average price is $636,672. The sold's $427,474, which is about 200 and something thousand off. And that's a significant gap between what's being bought and what's actually being attempted to be sold.
Okay, so let's break this down for listeners because some of this is real estate language, folks. Actives are homes currently listed for sale. Yep. Pending means under contract. You know what a sold is, hopefully. So tell us in summary what these numbers mean relative to, say, a month ago or a year ago, same time.
Yeah. I was talking to someone about the statewide number today because it comes up on the Compass website. We can see on a market snapshot exactly what came on the market last night. It was like 956 listings appeared in Georgia overnight last night. Brand new listings. Not price changes. These are brand new. So
wait. 956 listings came on yesterday?
Yes.
Okay, but give me
Georgia.
How does that compare to, say, a normal time?
I don't have
Was
a
it
reference.
an outlier?
I'm just learning this because these tools have really just become available to us.
There's some real tools out
there.
Right.
There are some real tools out there. But let me hammer this home. In town Atlanta, which I'm measuring, are 9 FMLS areas, which are basically from Chamblee down to East Point and inside the perimeter on the west and east sides. I'm not talking Tucker. I'm talking about Decatur, Atlanta, and the ancillary cities nearby. Inside the perimeter. Look, at this price, though, $636,672 have failed to sell as your average failed to sell number. Your average sold number is $427,474, which is
427,000 folks.
210,000 higher failure number versus the actual sold number. So
yes, but give me some relativity.
I'm going to give you. This is what the index is all about. It's just like when Case Shiller and they said, "Hey, Case Shiller, when did you start your index?" I started January 1st, 2000. That's when he started his, and they measured back, and he had a bunch of students doing. But this is Lee Taylor's number from last week, and he's going to compare it next week.
All right, so we don't have data to show what the same time last year looked like. But what we do know is there's still activity.
Yes, that's the main thing. And I want to start comparing it week by week because I think it's important to watch particularly the expired number so we can educate sellers. I think it's particularly important to see how much is selling so we can give buyers confidence. Make sense?
Yes. So
I spoke
to my friend Julian, Seattle agent.
Yes.
Yesterday via Zoom. I love Zoom.
Zoom is great.
Where has Zoom been all my life?
I know. Well, let's hope it's not a massive security breach about to happen, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I haven't really had any, top secret conversations yet.
Some have.
But what I will say, by the way, do you know all the divorce court is live on YouTube? Because it has to be public.
Really?
Yeah,
That's so boring.
My name.
Oh my God.
Could you imagine that because it's supposed to be public record, could you imagine showing up to divorce court and you just have to worry about who actually shows up to watch? But now it could be broadcast live to thousands of bored people at home.
And you're not talking about the produced television show Divorce Court.
No, I'm talking about a real life Judge Judy.
Civil law.
Right, yeah.
It sucks.
Anyway.
That sucks. I can't imagine that.
Well, anyway, back to the Zoom conversation because I hope that never happens to anybody.
By the way, if you are watching that on YouTube, I've got some professional wrestling videos that will interest you way more.
You love this.
I do
love this professional wrestling.
I do.
All right. Well, getting back to Julian in Seattle.
Yes.
Apparently, Seattle. I think Seattle was thought to have been much worse because of the whole nursing home incident.
Right.
And they've actually stayed pretty flat overall comparatively to Atlanta, right? We haven't had this major outbreak. And he said they're starting to get pretty busy again. So
I saw that on the graphics from Mike Delpreet last 2 days ago. He sent out the graphics of that city, and they looked at neighborhoods. Seattle is coming back.
You want to know something funny? Julian said that our city was built for social distancing because it's a bunch of socially distant techie people.
Yeah.
He goes, it was already antisocial, so telling everybody to not talk to everybody was like a dream.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, millennials.
Yeah, I guess.
Actually, I'm going to say that
Thanks for nothing.
Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer and the founders of Microsoft and Steve Jobs, those guys were baby boomers. Okay? Boomers. Okay, boomer.
All right, so that's I mean, it's interesting because I feel fairly active. I do feel like we've deferred a number of listings on our retail side.
Sluggish.
I think new construction and renos are continuing to come to market. We've had some condos stall because the buildings don't want people coming through. I've had a couple high-rise condos
Glad you
stall.
said that. I'm about to talk to a guy at 12 today at Atlantic Station, tonight at 7:30, and
it's all about the building.
I didn't even think about that.
It's all about the building. So, but overall, I'd say I feel this pent-up demand. People really want to look at homes, and they really wish that this thing was over. And if they're really motivated, they're still going. So showing counts down, but a lot of that's the looky-loos.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. We're going to start to measure looky-loos and what they really mean. And let's just imagine that half of all showings are just people wasting our time. And buyers agents, that's your fault.
All right. So let's move on and talk about our highlight topics today, Lee.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about those entitled millennials, those little pricks. I think that there's certainly a lot we have learned from millennials and the game change that they brought. And nobody can get mad at me because I'm a millennial, so don't call in telling me.
I'm not saying you're right. It's not about that, Jason. It's not about that. It's not about you.
I know.
It's not about you, and that's the main message to most millennials. It's not about you.
All right. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that these entitled millennials are cheering for a housing crash, according to, again, these crazy guys at CCN, which is an amazing read. These guys,
it's like the Breitbart of Europe, right?
They do some provocative articles. Millennials are actually cheering for a housing crash on Twitter. Oh, great! So they can profit. It seems.
Right. Jesse Sebastian on Twitter goes, "Waiting for the housing market to crash already, so I can purchase a home."
Mm-hmm. Another exhorted fellow millennials, start to save up. Save your money, millennials. That housing market is about to crash. Well, that's an easy way to put it.
Can't wait for the housing market to crash so millennials and more so people my age can have a chance at being a homeowner. From Malisanta, whoever that is.
In 2008, a flood of bank-owned houses destroyed the market value of other houses, creating a spiral of declining home prices and more foreclosures. Now, these kids, I call them kids, they went through that. And the credit markets are going to seize up, and a lot of these millennials are smart with their money. I've got some clients right now who have been renting and renting and renting. Single guys, single girls. Many of them aren't married. Many of them don't have kids. And the way they've held their money is impressive. And they have, truly, the smartest people I know, some of them, have been waiting for market to calm down. In the real estate market, they've looked at since 2012 and seen a rise, and they're smart enough to go, it's going to come down at some point. And these are people that work for the best firms in the country with the best educations.
Lee, hold on a second, though. The reality is people are hoping for a crash here. This reminds...
Not hope.
Dreaming? Right. Here's my take
my
on it.
intention.
It's to me, it's like a millennial or Gen Z millennial, I guess it depends on where that age cutoff is, going on spring break and not giving a crap about Corona if he gives it to somebody else. If you're hoping for a market crash, you might be hoping that some person that's older than you is losing their equity and has to sell at a loss, and they were depending on that for retirement. I think it's just wrong to get on social and hope.
I completely agree.
The plight of others, so your poor little ass can buy a house.
Well, your president taught them how to do that, so start there. Your president taught everyone to be smug and absolutely crass. Okay. So those kind of things happen on Twitter. And if we're going to talk about Twitter today, come on. That's like a waste of financial space.
A lot more older people vote for Trump than younger people.
I agree with that.
I don't really understand your analogy because
I'm just saying it
seems like the baby boomers like his crass language more than my generation.
If you read enough Twitter, and I don't, you'll see that most of it is a crass, technique of communicating, and it's being provocative. But bottom line is, I do think that they have a point. And some of the smartest kids I know, and I call them kids, these are people I know who have college educations under the age of 30. Some of them don't have college educations. You can look at Derek Grace and some other really, really smart people who don't have college educations, and they've been talking about this for a number of years. If you don't know who Derek Grace is, check him out.
Well, I don't think we're heading for a crash, first of all. I think value.
It's just like using the word, my favorite, what is it? Gentrification, correction. Words like that are loaded with soft BS.
So when does a correction become a crash? What came first, the chicken or the egg?
Crash is where it bottoms out and comes back,
go.
and you saw that in October of 2010.
I don't think we're going to crash and bottom out.
I think there'll be a soft landing in some neighborhoods. I think there are certain types of residential real estate that are not destined for the future, and those will be torn down and rebuilt. And I do think that's a big piece of the residential market coming ahead, so we can get more density, more affordability, and unfortunately in this coronavirus environment, if we're all vaccinated, co-housing and tighter living quarters.
Well, I will say this. I'm not really a fan of getting on Twitter and hoping for something like that, because I probably would not have wanted to be retweeted into this article.
That's the worst.
However, I will say this. This is going to be a time of opportunity for people. And what's going to...
Some people.
For people... Right. Okay.
Thank you.
So, but let's talk about one of the things that could feed into that opportunity, right? Because when there's less buyers, that will create more opportunity. Less buyers, less demand. Do I think demand's going to fall significantly? Again, we've been talking on the podcast for a while about how it's divergent. It's not going to be something you can use as a blanket statement. It'll in many ways depend on the city, the location within the city, the price point, etc., right? But let's argue there is a reason for demand to drop and values to drop. It's going to be in many ways related to financing or ability to find the credit crunch.
And you can certainly look at things like people's credit scores, and that is how people get measured, very much so in a pre-qualification with a mortgage professional. They're going to look at the credit score first. From there, the idea that you have a W-2 income is probably easier to get mortgage money right now than it is with any other type of income coming in. The rest will be looking at larger down payments, significantly larger probably than they might have been accustomed to just a month ago.
So Chase comes out this week, major bank, and they're the first. It doesn't mean everybody will go there, but it's certainly a domino. And Chase has now, as of immediately, meaning probably if you didn't have your loan locked already,
right,
are requiring 700 credit scores for all loan products. That's FHA, conventional, VA, USDA, all of it.
All of it.
Jumbo's probably even higher.
That's above 550. 510.
510 in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So 700, pretty strong credit score. A lot of borrowers, especially first timers, a lot of times can be 650 to 700 or even lower in some cases and in lower price points especially.
Right.
And then lastly, 20% down minimums on all loans.
I like to say for the time being. For the time being, that's true. And that's, getting back to the Gen X.
But we don't know how long that's going to be.
Waiting in lines is no problem for Gen X. We waited in line for the Grateful Dead. We waited in line for Star Wars. We waited in line for toys to come out. And we used to play Pong. So you guys, you impatient millennials, need to take a step back and realize that credit matters.
Hey, you raised us.
Stability. No, we didn't raise the millennials.
No, you're the generation above you did.
Did we? Maybe we
No, baby boomers mostly raised millennials.
Yeah, God.
Anyway.
Okay, boomer.
So, long story short, hefty down payments for now. It could create opportunity because of less demand.
True. For the sake of where we're at, though, I think that this is probably a safe place to be when you look at lending rates between banks, the interbank rate, the bank rate that the Federal Reserve establishes based on the 10-year Treasury note. God, it's like, 0.5% or less. So they're barely making money when they move money between banks. And that's the correspondent lender market. The wonderful mortgage companies we work with every day, they're dependent on that interbank rate. So they all have to make money, and this is just one of the ways it's going to happen.
All right, so Lee, let's move on to our next topic, which talks about the housing market in the long term. I think things we're talking about are in the short term. You're right, till the world opens up.
Right.
And we don't know how long that's going to be. So the window of opportunity is sort of unpredictable because when it comes back, things will slowly recover at whatever pace that is. But there's a lot of talk as to how this incident will create an outlook for the housing market.
I didn't see who they interviewed for this article, but it is in Forbes. And
I said 5 years out earlier. It was 5 agents.
Five agents, but
right.
It's hard to predict what 5 years out looks like, other than it should be a little more vaccinated. So, for the sake of what I think about the next, it starts with people who are doing some very, very deep, intense prognostication, like these Harvard guys who came out and said 2022, and they've got people counseling the mayor of LA and the mayor of New York with 2021 for your sporting and concerts. So those and don't come to Central Park, right?
Well,
to the band shell, don't come.
Let's talk about the highlights of this article,
right?
Which is some things that I think are really easily predictable. For instance, Airbnb owners are going to be really hit hard.
I think many will. I've talked to a few already who are stable, and it's because they've managed their money really well. It has been a money maker of a market for about 5-6 years.
That's true, but we don't know if everybody's cash position is that way. Many of them pay mortgages, and right now, I know at least locally, Airbnb, you have to rent a minimum of 30 days to be in compliance.
Well,
you can't do short-term rentals right now.
Okay.
And let's just face it, not many people are booking Airbnb or hotels or anything in the hospitality, so there's more.
It's about tourism.
Some people you could imagine people with 20 mortgages on Airbnbs that are all of a sudden not making a mortgage payment.
Right.
I don't care how good your cash position is, you could empty that really quick.
Well, this is what started the short sale market. Not this, but the idea that you're short and you can't sell your house for what you thought it was worth, and you bought it just 2 or 3 years ago, and you're not making money, you're losing money, is a time when you can position yourself for a short sale. I don't know if that's coming very fast. However, I talked to my first short sale agent I haven't talked to in a long time, Courtney Newton with Keller Williams, about a Marietta property today. I haven't done a business with her in like 8 years. But here's Courtney Newton with a short sale.
Yeah, I think, and I'm skimming the art. This was the one I read the least today because it was our sort of final topic. It wasn't as much the meat of what we were going to talk about. But I think that your investor, as I would predict, secondary homes, investor-owned properties will suffer the most.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of renters that have service level jobs. We've talked about that.
Right.
I think that the most stable are going to be the more premium locations where the buying pool is your professional high income earners. Their jobs are going to be the most stable, the ones that are, generally able to continue to work at ease in a virtual environment.
Right.
The people that couldn't work virtually so seamlessly, they're going to have a hard time. There's a lot of healthcare people in non-essential roles that are going to have a hard time.
Well, I think there's a lot of healthcare people
for the short term
working from home. It could be HR and payroll and other administrative tasks that can be handled offline and away from trauma centers, which is what many of our hospitals have become. And God bless the healthcare people. Systems and things that have improved rapidly have also become still cumbersome because insurance is crazy, and that's how they get paid. They have massive amounts of income coming through insurance companies, and then from there, public assistance. It's a crazy business to be in if you're the CFO of a hospital right now.
Well, and what I meant by non-essential is that there's a lot of people in healthcare that do elective type stuff. And that stuff's completely shut down. I mean, if you're a plastic surgery doctor or work in one of those offices, your revenue's totally shut. And, a lot of people, a lot of doctors, have big houses, big mortgages, and boats, and all kinds of stuff.
All these Botox shots I get every month. I just stop.
That's how you keep so young. That's how you stay so young looking.
Well, what's our other topics, man? We've talked about what's it going to look like in a few, and a few could be 20. I mean, really, to me, it's about the NCAA, NBA, NBA,
sports,
NFL.
Man. Please bring me sports back.
And concerts, and it's clearly, by the way, I think the 420 Festival is coming back as it's lined up 1 year from now. That means something. But those things anchor Atlanta seasonally, and let's hope that we have a 420 Festival next April.
All right, well, let's talk about...
And an Inman Park Festival.
Let's go and talk about... in extended due diligence, businesses that we want to support this weekly. You kick it off.
I got one. My friend Diamond Dallas Page is a professional wrestler, 3-time world wrestling champion. Started a fitness business about 15 years ago called DDP Yoga. And DDPY now is the app. If you download the app, you can get 7 days free. It might even be double that or 30 days now free. If you're a veteran, everything's 50% off. Diamond Dallas Page is a salt-of-the-earth guy who will work with anyone of any fitness level. And if you need fitness at home for $7.99 a month, you too can get fit at home. And Dallas is a really good teacher of how to do yoga without a lot of... It's a calisthenic approach and a physical therapy approach. I just appreciate him. I've known him for about 10 years now. And that's a solid program. It's local. It's based in Smyrna, Georgia, and he is a great person.
You've been talking about him for years, and
Yep.
I haven't met him, but seems like a really good guy. I can tell you his buddy, was it Vince McMahon or Ed McMahon? Who's the
Vince McMahon from the WWE. It's not Dallas's buddy, believe me. Go ahead. Yeah, you want to start there? Go ahead, Jason. We can talk about wrestling all day.
I was just gonna say, I think that the football gods have spoken, and
Yes,
nothing
they
is
have.
ever going to take the NFL. And coronavirus made sure that the XFL never took root.
Yep.
And I think it's just a sign that the NFL is not made to be challenged.
There's something about excess. That's what I think. When I think of XFL, I think of excess. And there's enough football for me in the fall.
All right, so let me talk about Cyb Fit Lab.
Yes.
I want to support my boy Wieloch Weeks. I've been training in that studio since 2016. He's full of energy. Him and his entire staff are really great at what they do, and they've got some great trainers that really do a very personalized review, and they do a lot of one-on-one, two-on-one, three-on-one type training. They're not your group fitness gym, but a place like that has been really hurt. But Wieloch has evolved and has this really great virtual training program. I'm doing it from home twice a week with Joanna, one of the trainers there, and he is a great entrepreneur. He's thriving, and tonight at 7:30, he's going to be on Facebook Live on the Wieloch Group page with me on a Zoom interview, and we're going to talk about his training philosophy, what they're offering virtually at home, and really he's going to offer a lot of insider tips on how he gets his clients in elite fitness.
Well, that's pretty
cool. I
cool.
think that's going to be really neat. It's 7:30 p.m. tonight on the Wieloch Group Facebook page, and we have so many supplemental interviews coming on the way. Next week, we're going to have Kent Walker, who's a local estate attorney. He's going to be talking about a lot of the things you need to be thinking about in a time like this where a virus is a real threat. He's also the most hilarious estate attorney you'll ever meet.
He's smart.
No one can make them laugh when they sign their will like Kent can.
He's got a great approach.
And I have Assam Ahmed, bureau chief for the New York Times
That's
from
a cool
Mexico
interview.
and Central America.
Jason's
He's a client of the Wieloch Group.
Yep.
Really great guy. He's going to come on and talk about how coronavirus is affecting that region. He is the New York Times. He manages the New York Times for that entire region. So really excited about that. Overall, we're just going to be bringing on really smart people to supplement our podcast and supporting great businesses like Wieloch tonight.
And DDP.
So,
hey, thanks for listening, everyone. It was a pleasure to be on YouTube once again.
it was. This is really fun. And if you have any questions, folks, about buying or selling real estate in this environment,
Investing.
if you just need advice,
You just need a good contractor because you want to do some projects at
exactly.
home.
We've got Lee. How can they get in touch with us?
You can get in touch at wheelochgroup.com, leetaylor.re on Insta. My cell phone number is 404-218-4126.
Well, we have a business line at 404-981-1378, and you can always
I've
reach
memorized
us.
that.
You should. It's our business line.
I don't remember. I have
at
not memorized that one.
info@wheelochgroup.com. And again, we are real estate experts here in Atlanta, Lee Taylor and Jason Wieloch, and we're bringing you over 30 years of combined experience to give you the best real estate news, advice, and probably some unfiltered bullshit here and there. But
That's awesome.
And we look forward to seeing you next week here on the podcast.
Thanks, everyone.